Spirulina algae is a blue-green algae, and it was the very first plant life on Earth 3.5 billion years ago. And all chlorella that's sold in North America, by regulation, has to be cracked. So you don't have to ask somebody if they have cracked chlorella, because it's always going to be cracked. Is that it stops the growth of blood vessels to tumors and cancer. And shame on Whole Foods for selling a product that has lead in it.
Ryan Muncie is probably the smartest guy I know.
Trust me, Muncie is the nutrition guy.
Ryan Muncie's out there trying to make the world better for all of us.
The Optimal Performance Podcast is bold, edgy, creative, entertaining, and epic.
Ryan Muncie is my go-to guy.
Ryan Muncie he's the first guy I call.
He's making people's lives better. Ryan Muncie's an innovator.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Optimal Performance Podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Muncie, and today we have Catharine Arnston from Energy Bits on the show. We're going to be talking about spirulina, chlorella, and algae as a health food. Catharine is an amazing person, very interesting, as you will quickly see, very energetic, very passionate. Catharine has an MBA from Western's Ivy School of Business, BA in Geography and Economic Development from Queen's University. She's a board-certified health counselor from the Institute for Integrative Nutrition, and she's a Reiki master. She also is an algae expert, the CEO and Chief Scientific Officer of Energy Bits, a sports nutrition company that sells algae in tablet form to athletes and consumers. Catharine has been on the Ben Greenfield podcast multiple times. She's been on Shark Tank. She's recently been on Fox News. Energy Bits is getting around. You've probably heard of spirulina and or chlorella in some form. We're going to dive in to the benefits of algae, particularly spirulina and chlorella. If you're not aware, a little bit of background on those things, because we don't really dive into the details on the show. But anyway, algae, especially for vegans and vegetarians, is one of the only ways to get absorbable brain-building DHA from a plant-based source. Chia seeds and flax seeds don't get converted into DHA. The omega-3s there come from ALA, and that conversion is nowhere near efficient inside of our body. So we do touch on that on the show. Algae has over 40 different vitamins and minerals. It has more protein than steak, more iron than liver, more calcium than milk, and more chlorophyll than kale, more antioxidants than berries per ounce. So a lot of health benefits from consuming spirulina and chlorella. We'll dive into all of that with Catharine. Algae is also eco-friendly, sustainable crop, releases oxygen while it's growing, produces 100 times more protein per acre than beef, provides the safest vegan source of omega-3s. It's grown in freshwater tanks, not the ocean. I'll ask Catharine a little bit about that, because in my experience and what I'd always been told is that wild is better for just about anything. So we do talk about that. And I'm going to stop talking. We'll turn this over to Catharine. Public service announcements for you guys. Please go to iTunes, leave us a 5-star review. Let us know how much you like the show. If we read your review on the air, we will hook you up with free Natural Stacks products. I'm going to pull up a review right here and read it for you guys. While I pull that up, never mind, here we go. My favorite all-out health and performance podcast. This is SYLLVKA, Solveka. I listen to a lot of podcasts, and all are very informative, but most are one big infomercial for a bunch of products, whereas Optimal Performance is just pure info extracted from top experts in the health industry and presented in a simple way that anyone can understand. This podcast is first on my list, and I'm always looking forward to my hour walk while listening to it. Love what you're doing. Keep doing it. Solveka, thank you for allowing me to join you on your hour walk. So, send me an email, ryan@naturalstacks.com. We'll get you hooked up with a little care package to help you optimize yourself, your life, your mission. For you guys listening, go to iTunes, leave us a 5-star review. We will read it on the air, and we'll hook you up with goodies. As you listen to this episode, if there are questions or comments that pop into your head, jump on social media, fire them our way. We're happy to get you an answer. If there's something that jumps out at you that you want to share with your friends and family, I will be forever grateful for you sharing this episode and the podcast in general with the people in your life who you know will benefit from and enjoy the things we're doing. That's how we reach more people. That's how we grow this movement and make the world a better place. Thanks for being here. Enjoy the show. All right, Catherine, welcome to the Optimal Performance Podcast.
Hey, thanks, Ryan. Thanks for having me here.
Yeah, we're excited to hang out with you today. Our listeners may have heard you on Ben Greenfield. You've been a guest on his show a few times. I know I've seen you on local news. You've been on recently in the Boston area. Yeah. You were on Fox News recently. You've been on Shark Tank, which is where I want to start today.
Oh dear!
For better or worse, your appearance on Shark Tank has been ranked the number 10. Was it worst pitch or biggest fail? However they phrase it. I don't bring that up. Harder.
It motivates you.
Yeah, I don't bring that up as something to try to embarrass you. But my question is, I want to know how that impacted your psyche as an entrepreneur, as a business owner. Did you ever hesitate after that?
No, never. No. And so the whole Shark Tank experience was fantastic. They, had 40,000 companies apply last year to be on it. So just being selected, being one of the 100 that they selected was an honor. And so I felt I'd already won the big, lottery just getting aired nationally. And I knew going in that, algae takes a while to understand what it does. And let's face it, Shark Tank is a national TV show. They're looking for things that are going to hit the middle market and take off right away, stuff that's really easy that can be on QVC. And I knew algae was not in that category. So my only disappointment was at the very beginning when I gave them samples, and we do recommend people swallow the algae because it doesn't taste very good unless you have a palate that's used to eating very green things. So they chewed it and went and, had the appropriate reaction, which was, ooh, and things just went downhill from there. I never recovered and was able to tell them all the wonderful data points that I have about algae. But did it affect my psyche? Not at all. I was just disappointed that they couldn't see the potential. I'm doing this as basically a service to humanity, quite honestly. And I knew this was going to take a long time. I'm already 8 years into it. And the awareness of plant-based nutrition is just starting to build. So the awareness of algae, which is as green a plant as you're ever going to get, is probably still about, in terms of national awareness, a couple of years away. So that's giving me time to do more deeper dives on the science, help explain to different audiences the different attributes that they should be looking for. So it didn't change me and my approach in the least. I still am very grateful for the opportunity. We didn't see a burst of activity in sales. We didn't. It does give us credibility when we talk to people because it is difficult to get on the show. Mm-hmm. So that's been really great. And people still recognize me wherever I go. It's like, hey, were you on Shark Tank? So it's kind of fun. You're a celebrity for a nanosecond. But quite honestly, we got much better response from Ben Greenfield's podcasts and articles because his community is looking for biohacks, and they understand science and they appreciate the complexity of something like algae. So it was a great experience. I got exactly what I wanted, which was national visibility, a little bit of credibility, and we're just going to keep going. So it's good.
All right. Well, and you kind of rolled right into the next thing I was going to ask you about that experience is, what were some of the biggest takeaways? And, I watched it, have you implemented some of the things, or what have you implemented since then to sort of, change your pitch and make sure that you do get across, the things that you want to get across, because it's clear that you are incredibly passionate about algae. it's clear that, look, on Ben Greenfield's show and on the Optimal Performance podcast here with us, you're talking to people who eat a lot of greens and are into, I had a text from a guy last night. He said, this is, I'm not going to tell our listeners who it is, but we were talking about a glutathione supplement that you can take as a suppository. And I was telling him that I always give people another suggestion, one that's, more of an oral, like a liposomal oral. And he said, I don't care what it is. If it makes me better, I'll shove anything up my ass. And,
right.
I said, insert prison joke here.
Right.
But you are talking.
I know that product, by the way, that he's talking about.
Yeah, you're talking to people here, who will go the extra mile, who will basically do whatever it takes to, optimize performance and health. But outside of these communities, when you're talking to the general public, there is sort of a barrier to, you want me to eat this green thing. And like you said, most people don't want to chew it or eat it. I've tried the product. I actually like that taste. I like chewing them. But again, not everybody does. So, what have you implemented to, be able to kind of cut through and get your message to people better, clearer, faster?
Sure. And I chew mine as well. So we have very fun stickers that we don't take to family friendly events, but the stickers say it's okay to swallow. We even have a website, it's okay to swallow.com, and t-shirts and headbands. So if anybody wants any, just let me know and we'll be happy to give it. We have thousands and thousands of them.
I need one of those.
We have a sense of humor here, and we want to educate people with a smile. So what have we done? Well, we're trying to find the right messaging that will resonate with people. And one of the messages that does seem to resonate is if they don't like to eat greens, you can swallow your greens instead, because a lot of people don't like the work that it takes to buy them, clean them, chop them, cook them, and then they don't even like the taste of them. So you can get all of the nutrients that you need from greens, not the roughage, mind you, but the nutrients, and even more importantly, the chlorophyll, because algae has 1,000 times more chlorophyll, at least the chlorella does, than any greens at all. And chlorophyll, as we'll talk about later in the podcast, is sort of the master antioxidant that seems to be missing from most people's diet. So this concept that you can get your greens quickly with a swallow seems to resonate with people quite a bit. So that was number one that we've found, and we also make sure that people understand that algae is not a supplement; it's food. And when we start to make the analogy, and they go, "Oh well, why do I have to take 30 of them?" And so we've realized that if you make the analogy, well, it's like a nut or a raisin, and when you're hungry, you don't have just one nut; you have a handful. So the people go, "Oh, okay, I get it. It's like a snack." And we do explain too that it's quite likely that eventually we'll have like a trail mix that has the tablets in there for the people that do like the flavor. And so that really helps them mentally get away from the thought that they're pills and that they're actually food. And that's when we usually say, well, that's in fact why we call them bits, because they're bits of food. Algae is just something we grow in water hydroponically, and then we press the water out into the tablets, and boom, it's just a snack food that's portable or swallowable.
So keeping that sort of thought process, have you thought about, not making it a pressed tablet? Is there another form in which it could be delivered that would better fit into like a trail mix or something?
Well, eventually we can do various product extensions, as they're called. But the key, because we're so small, and what you need to remember is the algae industry is massive in Asia. So we're not talking, small little hydroponds in the back of someone's backyard. These are industrial complexes. It's almost as big as the beef industry. And so when you have an algae farm, there'll be, 3 or 4 football fields full of these large tanks growing algae. So we're just lucky they'll sell to us because we're so tiny. We don't have any leverage right now to do other product developments, but eventually we could. But then I'm also a purist, and I want to offer our community, particularly people, which is a growing area, people with food sensitivities or food focuses. So, the keto community, the paleo community, the vegan community. Then there's so many people that have food allergies, whether it's gluten or sugar or nuts or seafood or, of course, this is grown in seafood. So I'm quite happy with what we have now because it is the cleanest, purest, safest, densest source of nutrition. And the problem with our society is that all these illnesses that we're experiencing are nutrition and lifestyle related. So if you aren't getting proper nutrition, you really have a hard time preventing illness or getting better. Mm-hmm. So I feel that we're doing a service right now. And I'm not going to stray from that in the immediate future. I just have to help people understand how to take it, why to take it, and make it part of their daily routine.
Gotcha. And we'll get into a lot of these topics in a few minutes. But while we're on the train of thought of the tablets, I'm just curious, and I'm sure a lot of our listeners will be curious. Is there potential for damage to the nutrients or the nutrient profile with the process that creates that pressed tablet, whether pressure or temperature processing?
Well, in fact, and thank you for asking that. One of the things that we're so proud of is the fact that we do go through extensive processes to ensure there is no damage. For example, most of the larger companies in China that are bulk sellers of algae and where you can buy much less expensive algae like Walmart, they use flash heat to dry the algae, which of course does alter the nutrients, and it's no longer a raw food because it damages the enzymes. We do not use high heat, so it's still a raw food. And there are no processes that damage anything. Everything we do, including the packaging, which is in airtight, UV protected foil bags that have layers of other things inside to protect from the aluminum. That shelf life of the algae is almost forever. Our algae literally never goes bad, although we do have to put expiry date on it. It's usually 3 or 4 years. So we've, and on the note of safety, we get all the labs from our growers in Asia, but to assure the doctors and the wellness practitioners who work with us and recommend our products to their clients, we have an FDA-approved lab here in the U.S. that does all the testing to be sure there's no pesticides, no toxins, no metals, and that the nutrient profile is exactly what we say it is. And we make those lab tests available to all the professionals who work with us. So we've gone the extra mile on the growing techniques, the packaging techniques, the drying techniques, and the safety techniques, which I'm not aware of any other company that does as much as we do to ensure the purity, quality, and safety. And I'm very proud of that. And that's why we're the only algae company that I'm aware of that's endorsed by doctors and, in fact, Olympic athletes. So,
that sounds a lot like the open source initiative that Natural Stacks has, and that's the approach that we take with all of our supplements as well. We also provide those third-party certificates of authenticity and independent lab testing to make sure that everything is exactly what we want it to be, so that our customers know exactly what they're putting in their bodies. So
exactly,
that's a message that our customer base is used to hearing, and will resonate well with them. Hearing that somebody else in the supplement industry, albeit a different supplement, or as you said, it's not a supplement, it's a food. But still, we appreciate that. Yeah. We love hearing that. So,
yeah.
So let's dive in. Let's talk about, so far we've said algae, but, specifically energy bits, you have a spirulina and a chlorella product.
Correct.
Explain the difference between the two and how and why we would choose one over the other.
Terrific. Yes, so this is very, very important because they are quite different. So spirulina algae is a blue-green algae, and it was the very first plant life on Earth 3.5 billion years ago. And there are fossils that prove that this occurred. Prior to algae, spirulina algae, the Earth was just gas and water, but algae releases so much oxygen while it's growing and captures carbon dioxide that after about 1 billion years, there was oxygen on the planet, which allowed other plant forms to grow, and eventually chlorella came along. So spirulina is technically a bacteria. And the reason why this is important, well, it's actually, I used to hesitate telling people it was a bacteria for the last few years, but now the whole biome thing has evolved. It's like, now I'm proud that my algae is a bacteria. Woohoo!
You were on the good bacteria train before school.
Exactly. So, and the reason why this is important is because in the bacteria, there is no cellulose wall on the outside of the cell structure, which means that it can be absorbed into your body almost instantly. This is why we were so successful and still are successful with athletes, whether they're triathletes or marathon runners or Olympic athletes, and they need energy quickly, and the energy they get from the spirulina is steady, but it does get absorbed very, very quickly into your body.
So just to build on that and to make sure our listeners understand what's going on there, is because it can be digested without diverting blood to the digestive system. Athletes or people who are working out are able to keep that blood, from going to the digestive system, and it's in the muscles and working, where they need it to be.
Yes. And the other related part of that is that this is why there is never any kind of digestive distress, which is usually occurs with, not always, but many people experience digestive distress from using gels and other artificial or sugar-based sports nutrition products, because when you are exercising, all the enzymes and blood flow are busy doing other things in your body, and there aren't enough enzymes in your stomach to digest whatever you're putting down there, particularly something difficult like sugar or chemicals. So they get into your lower intestine undigested, where they are attacked by bacteria and they ferment. And the fermentation is what causes gas. This never occurs with the algae, particularly spirulina, because it's absorbed into your bloodstream within 10 minutes and it never hits your GI tract undigested. Of course, there's also no chemicals, caffeine, or sugar, but the most important thing is it's already in your body before it hits your lower intestine.
Okay.
So it's what I call efficient nutrition. So related to that, it's 99.9% bioavailable. So so the other great thing about spirulina, both spirulinas, but particularly both algae, particularly spirulina, is that it has the highest concentration of protein in the world. And all of the protein is in unstructured amino acids. So as your listeners probably know, your body can't absorb protein. It has to break down the protein to amino acids. Well, the protein in the algae is already in amino acids. So again, very efficient nutrition. You get all those, aminos into your system, and all the other minerals, the 40 other vitamins and minerals that are in the spirulina also get absorbed instantly. So you get access to the high concentration of iron, the high concentration of omega-3. And so the things that are going to differentiate spirulina from the chlorella, the spirulina has a much higher protein. It has the blue pigment in it because it's a blue-green algae, and the blue pigment is called phycocyanin, and that has actually anti-cancer properties. It has a much higher concentration of omega-3 and another essential fatty acid called GLA that behaves like an omega-3. So this is why your focus improves, and they use it for brain concussions, Alzheimer's, any kind of ADHD. So spirulina is what you want for your energy and your focus because of the protein, the high B vitamins, the omega-3. Those are probably the top notes about what differentiates it from the chlorella. So it's really an energizing, mentally and physically algae, and it satisfies your hunger because of all that protein and omega-3.
So before we move on to chlorella, just algae in general, but I think spirulina, you mentioned the really high protein content. That's more protein per pound than any other protein source. More iron than liver, more calcium than milk, more chlorophyll than kale, more antioxidants than berries. That is per pound, maybe not necessarily per serving. Correct. That's
per weight. Correct.
And then the omega-3s that you mentioned. That's a special form of plant-based omega-3, right? Explain that for our listeners.
The irony is that the fish get their omegas from algae. They just consolidate it. And even Dr. Oz has said the better source of omegas are actually algae because they're purer and they're closer to the source. So there's actually just a small amount of omega-3 in algae, but there's a very high concentration of something called GLA, which is gamma-linolenic acid. And that behaves like an omega-3 in that it reduces inflammation. So, and that's why the spirulina is very chewy. It's the combination of the protein and these essential fatty acids. The only other place where you get more GLA is mother's milk in the colostrum. And the reason why there's so much GLA in colostrum is because when the baby is born, within the next 2 years, the brain doubles in size. So that GLA is essential for development, a healthy brain development. So I say to people, well, you know what? We need healthy brain development at whatever age we are, but you can't very well go ask a mother to share her breast with you. So if you want some really great GLA, there you go. Get it from algae. Mother Nature's other's perfect food.
Definitely don't ask that question wearing a T-shirt that says it's okay to swallow.
Yeah, right.
No, but what I was going for with the special on the omega-3s is that, you know, the algae sources is the only plant-based source where we actually get the brain-building DHA. The typical plant sources like walnuts, chia seeds, flax seeds, we actually, the omega-3 is in the form of alpha lipoic acid, and that's not converted
AHA, right.
efficiently to DHA. So that's what I meant when I said special.
I see. Well, the other thing, just on that note, is we're very proud of the fact that algae is a sustainable, eco-friendly crop, and there's a lot of problems happening now in the oceans and the ecosystem there because everyone realizes how important omega-3 is, and so the demand for fish oil has gone through the roof, and it's been causing very serious eco damage where they're having these large fish farms because, I don't want to get too graphic, but of course you concentrate all these fish into an area and there's fish poop and it's acidic and it's killing they're getting dead zones in the ocean. So algae is a sustainable source of omega-3. So if you love your oceans, get your omega-3 from algae.
Well, and even if you don't care about the ocean and you're just going to be, worried about yourself, I mean, you don't want to eat factory farmed fish for that reason. You don't want to consume what you think are healthy omega-3 supplements that come from those environments. I mean, they're really not healthy as we think. So, sticking with that kind of line of thinking, and one of the questions I was going to ask you is, I know that these algae are farmed, and typically we always think of wild harvested, wild caught, pasture raised type things being better in terms of health and in terms of the environment. How is a sustainably farmed algae better?
Right. Well, actually, algae is probably the only thing that I could truly think of where you do not want it wild farmed. And the reason for that is that algae will absorb whatever is in the water. So if there are contaminants in the water, and I see on the internet lots of times people are posting warnings about mitochondria&nbsp, or I can't even say it correctly, but yes, there will be toxins in any algae that is grown wild in either a pond or a lake or the ocean. But that's why all algae that's consumed at the nutritional level for humans and actually also for livestock feed is harvested. It's carefully grown in water tanks. Some are indoor, ours are outdoor, because you can monitor and manage and control the environment. There used to be a company that grew algae in Klamath Lake, and I would urge people not to buy that because they found out that the Canadian geese flew overhead and pooped on the way over the lake, which of course changed the acidity of the lake, and of course that gets absorbed into the algae. I know that they do their best to preserve the cleanliness and test things, but it's not recommended. And a lot of people think algae is grown in the ocean, and it is not. It is harvested in freshwater tanks. Just like, you have hydroponic farms growing tomatoes or other vegetables in water. It's the same sort of thing.
So are these tanks covered? Is there sun exposure?
They're not covered. Ours are grown in Taiwan, which is another reason why we're very proud of our quality. I wouldn't be buying any algae from Japan right now because there's still some radiation potential issues. China does not have as tight controls as Taiwan. Taiwan is a very sophisticated community. So, and their water source is completely different from Japan. So they are open air, but they're tested for purity. So and then again, we get lab tests both from them, and then we do our own lab tests here, as I mentioned, from the FDA lab. So there's some companies are starting to grow algae indoors in big tanks, but then you're starting to get into almost a process. I'm a bit of a purist, and I think having the natural sunlight is the way to grow this, and we're going to keep try to do that as long as we can. It's a slower process because it takes a good month to grow the algae and then 2 or 3 weeks to dry it and process it or dry it out and get a package. So it's about a 2-month window of getting our algae from start to finish.
Okay. So then I think we sort of covered spirulina. How is chlorella different?
So chlorella is a green algae. Remember, spirulina is a blue-green algae, so it has that blue pigment called phycocyanin. And I'll tell you a funny little segue. That blue in the spirulina, it doesn't exist anywhere else in nature, and it has incredible natural. It's a pigment, natural healing capabilities. One of which, as I mentioned, is that it stops the growth of blood vessels to tumors and cancers. Anyways, the fun little story is that Mars, who makes Smarties and M&Ms rather, they realized that there's a movement in America to eat healthier. So about a couple of years ago, they changed their the blue dye that they used on their M&Ms, and they now make it. The blue dye is from spirulina. There are companies that are just growing the spirulina for M&Ms, blue M&Ms.
So I think a lot of people have heard this story. I forget who the band is or the singer, but they requested that at whatever concerts they played backstage, that the M&Ms were only like one color of M&M.
Oh, really?
In their bowl
funny.
Backstage, and there was something to this, and there was a reason to doing it, and that's a whole other story for another day. But where I was going with that is, if I were ever to get that famous and could request a bowl of M&Ms wherever I show up,
get blue ones.
For only blue ones, would I be healthy if I just blue ones?
Of course, that little teeny tiny
still
bit
M&Ms, right?
Yeah. It's still loaded with sugar, but you do have that halo effect of the spirulina. But anyways, it's kind of a funny story. So chlorella is a green algae, and it developed about I don't know the exact time, but probably about 1 billion years after spirulina, and it is truly a plant. So it has a cellulose wall and it has a nucleus. Now, the importance of that for your listeners is that unlike spirulina that gets into your bloodstream almost instantly, chlorella, because it actually has the hardest cellulose wall in the plant kingdom, it actually has to be cracked at production, or your body wouldn't be able to absorb any of the nutrients. And even with it cracking, and all chlorella that's sold in North America by regulation has to be cracked. So you don't have to ask somebody if they have cracked chlorella, because it's always going to be cracked. And even when it's cracked, it still takes about an hour and a half to get into your bloodstream. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about the production issue related to the chlorella, and then I'm going to talk about the benefits of the chlorella and how they differ from spirulina. Yeah. So this issue of cracking chlorella, the technique to crack it was first developed about 45 years ago by a company called Sun Chlorella, which was the granddaddy of chlorella, and maybe some of your listeners use or know the product. And they patented a technique where they tumbled the chlorella with glass beads, and it was the actual banging up of the glass with the chlorella cracked the chlorella. Now, there was always concern that as the glass heated up, maybe some lead from the glass would leak into the chlorella, and they always denied that was the case. And then about 10 years ago, the state of California decided to do a test, and they tested their chlorella and found indeed that there were high levels of lead in their chlorella. So they said, look, you can do one of two things. You can stop selling in California, or you can put a warning on your package that your chlorella contains an excess amount of lead that is known to cause birth defects and brain damage. And so that's what they did. Now, the irony is I bought a box of their chlorella from Whole Foods a couple of years ago, and there it is. There's the warning. Anybody can go to Whole Foods or anywhere and buy some chlorella, and the warning will be there. And I asked my team, how much lead is too much lead? I would say 0. And, shame on Whole Foods for selling a product that has lead in it. And I'm sorry for calling out Whole Foods, but because they probably don't even, I'm sure they're not even aware of it. But I point this out because I learned this when I was starting the company 8 years ago, that there was a possible concern about lead. And I thought, if I'm going to do this, everything we do has to be absolutely the purest, safest way. So I had tried to find another way to crack the chlorella, and I found a company that does have a more modern, more expensive technique, and they pass the chlorella through a sound chamber, and it's the vibrations that crack the chlorella. So no glass, no heat, no lead. And that's why one of the reasons the doctors love our chlorella, and of course the spirulina too, because it's the cleanest chlorella they've seen. It shows up on the test. There is no lead in our chlorella. We actually have been in touch with the Mercury Poisoning Association, the Global Mercury Poisoning Association, who want to work with us because they've known for decades that chlorella is really the best thing for pulling mercury out of your body. And this is a big issue right now. But they didn't want to work with any of the other chlorella companies because they had lead in it. So they were kind of in between a rock and a hard place. So, right. So now they're really happy and they want to work with us. So we're really happy about that.
How does chlorella help remove mercury?
So chlorella is a couple of, the main reason is because it has this hard cellulose wall and it attaches itself to toxins of any kind, not just mercury. It's any kind of, it's fluoride, it's aluminum. Your listeners will be happy to know it also detects alcohol as a toxin. So, and this is how I know for sure that it takes an hour and a half to kick in, because if you take a serving of chlorella, recovery bits, after you drink, don't take it before because you will never get a buzz. It's like a Roomba. It pulls the alcohol right out of your bloodstream. But an hour and a half after you take it, you will be stone sober and you will never have a hangover. It pulls the alcohol right out of your bloodstream. It never makes it to your liver. So it's quite remarkable. It works every time. So it's the ability for it to attach to toxins, and chlorella, both spirulina and chlorella are what we call adaptogens. It knows what to do in your body. So it doesn't pull out the minerals that need to be there. It only knows which ones should not be there. And one of the other amazing things about chlorella is that it has the highest concentration of chlorophyll. It has twice the amount of chlorophyll as spirulina. And as we can talk further, chlorophyll has always been known for hundreds of years to be a very cleansing pigment. And in fact, the chemical composition of chlorophyll is virtually identical to the chemical composition of hemoglobin. The only difference is one atom out of the entire structure. And that atom that's different in your body is an iron atom in the middle, which iron is what carries oxygen in your blood. And that one atom in plants is magnesium. Other than that, the entire structure is identical. And so that's why chlorophyll has always been known to be very cleansing. If anyone has a dog, they'll probably notice that their dogs will eat grass if they're sick, because the animals instinctively know of the cleansing nature of chlorophyll. And during World War I, when they would run out of blood transfusions, I read that they would give the injured liquid chlorophyll because they would heal just as fast as if they'd had a blood transfusion. And they even used it topically because it kills bacteria. It's an oxygen-based algae. Well, not algae, but chlorophyll. It's loaded with oxygen. So chlorella pulls out the toxins because it has this hard exterior that exists like there's nothing else like it in the plant kingdom or anywhere, and it has the very high concentration of chlorophyll, which is also cleansing. So those are probably two of the top notes. The other very interesting thing about chlorophyll, unlike other nutrients that get absorbed, by your stomach and lower intestine, chlorophyll actually, you only absorb about 10% of it in your stomach. It is the one pigment, the one nutrient that actually stays in your intestinal tract the entire way. So it goes through the liver, down through your intestines and through your entire colon. And the reason why this is really important is because chlorophyll absorbs carcinogens. So when you take something with a lot of chlorophyll, you are protecting yourself from all sorts of other diseases, and particularly your colon. And there's been a lot of colon cancer in the last 10 or 20 years. And this will protect you, the chlorophyll. Now, the best, you can get chlorophyll from other places, of course, but algae has the highest concentration, like 1,000 times more than greens and 50 times more than wheatgrass. So it's really exciting to know about these healing properties of chlorophyll. And that's a very, very important one. So that also helps with the cleansing process. Your liver is essential. Your liver health is essential to your health.
And you've also, I think one of your previous appearances on the Ben Greenfield podcast, you guys talked about how chlorophyll is possibly the number one antioxidant missing from, most people's health routine or diet.
Right. And which is so unfortunate. And even if you eat greens, I mean, let's face it, our crops and our soil have been so overcropped and monocropped, and there's literally no minerals left in the soils for the plants to absorb. And so if there aren't any minerals in the soil, there's nothing for them to pass on to you. So even if you eat organic, and I eat a lot of salads, believe me, and I also eat grass-fed beef, so I don't want people to think that I'm just this sort of weird person, but we're just not getting enough. We're just not getting enough chlorophyll. And as I started digging through the health benefits of chlorophyll, I sort of had this epiphany. Oh my God, this is one of the reasons why everyone's getting sick, because it helps with the health of the mitochondria. So, which is of course where all the disease occurs, that in your immune system, and your liver not being able to detox the toxins. And we have so many toxins in our environment now. There are 80,000 that have been released since World War II. So the combination of heavy toxic overload on our system and insufficient cleansing through natural means with chlorophyll from our diet has left most people exposed to illnesses and just, or weight gain, foggy brain. And again, also what happens when you don't eat a really green diet, you're eating a lot of foods that are acidic, which causes bacteria to gather in your lymphatic system, and that slows everything down, and that causes, again, more acidity, which leads to a distressed immune system, which leads to your mitochondria not working properly, which leads to a cascade effect, which ultimately leads to DNA damage and more.
Chlorophyll contains glutathione precursors, right? And that's the master antioxidant that helps with all of this detoxification and immune support.
Well, algae contains that. Chlorophyll is a pigment. So algae contains glutathione, yes, and chlorophyll.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
In fact,
the glutathione precursors then are in the spirulina.
Yes, they're in both of them. Okay. They're in both. Yep. They're in both of them. But just to make it easy for your listeners to understand the difference, the spirulina is the algae that gives you energy, mental focus, satisfies your hunger, and has a high concentration of those essential fatty acids, which reduce inflammation, your heart inflammation. And chlorella is a cleansing health algae. So it's really for wellness, preventing illness, correcting it. The other thing I wanted to mention is it also has chlorella has the highest concentration of RNA and DNA in the world. And the reason why that's important is because that's what you need to maintain your health. And if you have an injury or surgery, it will help your cells grow back faster and in a healthy fashion. So this is particularly important for people as they're aging, because their DNA gets damaged and then it replicates in a damaged form. So that's what we call our chlorella recovery bits, because it helps you recover from just about anything. It's very much a health and wellness algae versus energy focus of the spirulina.
Yeah. Okay. So with the energy bits and the recovery bits, energy bits that's the spirulina, recovery bits is the chlorella.
Correct.
Okay. And since we're talking about that, you've got a special discount for our listeners, right?
Yes. So anybody, we want to offer a 20% discount. Just use the discount code OPP. I wonder what that stands for. We have a little coupon box in our shopping cart, and just type in OPP and you'll see the discount appear on the screen. It works on everything. at any time. So we'd be delighted to share that with your community.
Awesome. So Catharine, let's really, I want to look at some of the research, that kind of backs up and supports some of the benefits that we've already talked about, but maybe some of the things that we haven't touched on yet. And I know our audience will appreciate that as well. I actually did a quick search and found some interesting things. There was a study in Cameroon on HIV patients that showed increased CD4 cells and reduced viral load after daily use for 6 months. I thought that was fascinating. I'm sure you mentioned was it the phycocyanin?
Phycocyanin, yes.
Yeah, the phycocyanin that helps fight cancer.
Yeah, well, in fact, we didn't even know this. This is what's so interesting. A couple of years ago, we were contacted by a cancer association, 20-year-old cancer association called the Angiogenesis organization. They're actually here in Cambridge, Massachusetts. And they were holding a global conference, and they said, did you know that the phycocyanin in your algae helps stop cancer? And we said, really? How does it do that? So it has what's called anti-angiogenesis properties. Angiogenesis is a process by which the blood vessels are basically hijacked by the tumor or cancer to feed the tumor or cancer so it grows. And there are different pathways and things that will prevent the growth of those blood vessels to the cancer tumor, and the phycocyanin is one of them. And the interesting thing also, it made sense to me because phycocyanin is a water-based pigment, and of course, so it's affecting your blood, feeding the cancer, whereas chlorophyll is a fat-based pigment, and that's why it helps with your cells. So yes, so the phycocyanin has these remarkable cancer prevention capabilities. So I'm quite excited that people can have a snack and stop cancer at the same time.
Everything that we've done with Natural Stacks has made us very aware of what we can and can't say. I know Natural Stacks is in the supplement world. I'm assuming that energy bits are classified as foods. Have you run into sort of roadblocks on what you can and can't say, or claims that you can and can't make?
Well, we're very careful, and I probably shouldn't even raise the cancer word here, but we're referencing data and science that was sent to us by a third party, this other cancer association,
right.
And it's their research, and they're the ones that told me, and I'm happy to share the research they sent us, and they invited us to come to the conference. So we're just sharing data that we have collected. We would never, and we are not allowed to, and ever say that our algae would stop cancer or could prevent cancer or can prevent any kind of health condition or correct any health condition. We can only provide information about the nutrient profile and reference the different scientific studies from either the NIH or wherever they exist about the different findings from treatments of Spirulina or Chlorella, but we are not allowed to say ever in print or on our website or in that we could do anything that's a health related issue. And anytime anyone asks me a question on email, I always have to preface the answer. We're not medical professionals. We are not allowed to give medical advice. However, here is some information that you can learn and educate yourself, and you make the decision or show it to your health professional. Because we're here to do a service, and I don't want to get shut down. So yeah, thank you for mentioning that, because I get so excited about algae, and I forget that I have to be very careful about sort of the not barriers, but the guidelines that are set in place.
Right. I guess moving off of major diseases like cancer, there's a lot of research to support mitochondrial and ATP function as well, right? Yes.
Well, there's been and there's a lot of really cool stuff that I talked to Ben also about. So, for example, they've been finding that if you have reduced ATP, you have reduced mitochondria health and you have reduced energy. But they've been finding that if you increase your chlorophyll intake and you get access to sunshine, your mitochondria actually generate a very clean source of energy from that, which is pretty cool when you think about it. So we're basically behaving like plants, right? We're generating energy from the chlorophyll and the sunlight. And I'd be happy to share the science article that documented that with your readers if they send me an email or something.
Yeah, so let's make it really easy on them, and I'll just tell everybody listening that all of the research, I'll get you to send me the link, and I'll put all the links to all of these studies on the show notes for this show.
Perfect.
And if you guys listening want to pursue it, all you have to do is go to naturalstacks.com, find the blog post for this podcast, and we'll have everything there for you guys to pursue.
Right. And while we're talking about the mitochondria, one of the things I do want to mention is there's something called superoxide dismutase, which is an antioxidant found in spirulina. It's not in chlorella. And the reason why this is important as an antioxidant is the only antioxidant that can penetrate the mitochondria cell wall and neutralizes superoxide and turns it back into oxygen. So it slows aging, it protects the mitochondria, it's a tumor suppressor, a neuroprotector. And to my knowledge, spirulina algae is either the only or has the highest concentration of this. It's called SOD, superoxide dismutase, in the world. Your body generates it naturally, but this is an exogenous source. So, and we have a quote saying that SOD is an antioxidant 3,500 times more powerful than any other vitamins. And there are 24,000 units of this SOD in a single serving of spirulina. So it's really real.
1,000?
I know, units. So because what it does is when you have damaged mitochondria, that you have reduced cellular respiration, you have increased oxidation, you have reduced cellular signaling, reduced cellular apoptosis, which is, when the cells know they're sick and they kill themselves. So all of that deteriorates when you don't have sufficient ATP. So the key is to keep your ATP high and your mitochondria healthy. And this superoxide dismutase is one of the ways to do that. And that's found in the spirulina.
Okay. So one of the questions that I wanted you to clarify, as I was looking through a lot of the studies, mentioned spirulina or chlorella specifically. But several others were just talking about blue-green algae. Am I correct in looking at that as like blue-green algae is more of like an umbrella term that would include spirulina?
Yes.
Is chlorella included in that or no?
No, chlorella is a green algae.
Okay.
Blue-green algae will have the pigment phycocyanin, and that's what differentiates them.
So if we're looking, if our listeners are pursuing research or studies on their own, blue-green algae would be an umbrella term that covers spirulina, but if you're looking for chlorella stuff, then it would need to specifically say chlorella.
Yes.
Or green algae.
And, I'll have to admit, I believe, and I could be wrong, but everything I've read, blue-green algae is completely interchangeable with the word spirulina. See, spirulina is a bacteria. And so when the knowledge of spirulina and blue-green algae came out, 50 or 60 years ago, I think they were referring to it as a blue-green algae. And then since then, they got a little bit more scientific and called it spirulina. But they're basically the same thing. It's just like saying, I don't know, I'll have that analogy, but from everything I can see, anytime you're seeing somebody refer to blue-green algae, they're talking about spirulina. It is the same thing that I've observed. I could be wrong.
Different than AFA, the Aphazominion flows aquae, that maybe was one of your competitors, the E3.
Yeah, well, they're the ones that grow the algae in Klamath Lake, And
but they're not calling that spirulina. They're calling that AFA, the AFA.
Well, that's a little technicality. I think they're trying. I don't know. I can't comment on what anybody else is doing because I never know the inside story. It's possible that they've made some sort of adjustment to the profile, the nutrient profile, and are giving it its own name, but it's probably 90% the same. I don't know because I don't know their science and I don't know the nutritional profile, but it's I think it could be more of a marketing thing than anything, to be perfectly honest.
So then is that not something that occurs naturally? Like AFA is not a naturally occurring bacteria, a blue-green algae?
Well, it's a term that's used. I haven't spent much time, quite honestly, researching it because it's not what we do. We grow spirulina. So it's a very good question. I actually don't have an answer for you because I don't spend any time studying I haven't seen any data on the nutrient profile, so I don't know what the what's actually in it compared to spirulina. I do know that spirulina, or rather algae, is part of the larger seaweed family, but seaweed is grown in the ocean and has more fiber and less nutrients. So this aqua whatever is also under the umbrella of the seaweed family and maybe a subset of spirulina. I honestly don't know.
Yeah, I just typed it into Google and the Wikipedia entry, not that this is exactly scholarly, but it just says it's a brackish and freshwater species of cyanobacteria found around the world, including the Baltic Sea and the Great Lakes.
Right. So that means it's a type of blue-green algae.
Okay.
Yeah. So, well, and here, this may be the answer. There are 15 to 20,000 strains of algae. 15 to 20,000. And virtually all of them are poisonous, except chlorella, spirulina, and this, and there's a couple other ones. So maybe you're right. Maybe the sort of cyanobacteria, which is referred to as spirulina, maybe it's just a subset of that. That seems to be the answer I can give you because I really don't know anything about it.
Okay. Well, I'm trying to establish a framework for our listeners, if they want to do research on their own or if they're going to, let's say they go to a health food store and they see 5 or 6 different types of, spirulina or chlorella products on the shelf, which I know is realistic because I've seen that. I've been to, a vitamin store and seen that. What questions do our listeners need to ask either themselves or should they be looking to get answered on the label or should they ask the store manager in order to sort of make an informed decision and make sure that we get the healthiest thing, the safest thing into our bodies?
Right. Well, you definitely want to know this. The most important thing is the country of source. So I would urge people to stay away from things that are grown in China. So that would be number 1 on my list. Number 2, I would find out what else that company is selling. Because if it's a company that sells, thousands of other products, I can almost promise you that there's going to be a looser set of quality controls on the algae. And again, you want to be careful with algae because it absorbs whatever's in the water. So I don't know of any company that can spend as much time on quality control as much as we do because that's all we sell. There's different strains of, in this case, of spirulina. So there's, you want to look at the nutrient profile, and so how much protein is in there, B vitamins, because they're going to be different depending on how they were grown and how they were dried. Speaking of drying, you would probably want to know how did they dry it, because if they use flash heat, then you're going to be killing some of the you'll be killing the enzymes for sure, and you'll be damaging some of the nutrients. So that's probably explains why some of the nutrient profile will be smaller. Mm-hmm. We do ours in a pressed form so we don't have any binders. You want to find out if there are any binders, because binders can cause allergic reactions. Some people might be you might get sick from it. We also don't want to put ours in any kind of capsule because we want to be able to be as fresh and have no animal sources or anything in there. So look at the type of packaging. We like to do the tablet too because it's very portable. Some people want a powder, but then you have to always be mixing it, and the tablet makes it possible to just pop in your pocket. So the source, the drying technique, the nutrient profile. For chlorella, you want to find out how did they crack the chlorella? Was it with glass? Because if it was, then I can pretty much assure you there'll be lead in that chlorella. So that's really important. And the packaging, because you want to be sure that the product is preserved. And if it's just in a regular glass bottle, light will pull the chlorophyll out of the algae, so you're getting a lower nutrient profile. We put ours in UV protected bags that, as I mentioned, almost last forever, so there's no deterioration. So those are a couple of the top notes, I would think.
Nice. That's really good information. You mentioned maybe some people want a powder. Are the bits something that you could just tear it open and dump them into a blender if we were making a shake at home?
Yeah. And we started with the tablets because we wanted them to be accessible to the largest number of people so they could carry them around. But right. I think next year we might offer a powder because there are so many people making smoothies now. We want to make it easy for our community to accomplish whatever it is, whatever the goals are. So, yeah. But yes, in the interim, you can throw it in your Vitamix and grind them up. So yeah.
I'm curious now. I really like that last one you said on the questions to ask about the glass bottle. I mean, if you did make a powder, how would you package that to prevent the light?
Oh, we'd still sell it in our bags. Okay. It wouldn't be very portable because powder's messy. So, right. We probably could do single servings in a powder because I think there's lots of companies. Vega is one of them. Does lots of pouches with powders, and Vega's a really great company, by the way. You mean like the single serve, like little sticks, right? Yeah. So that's doable. We're just trying to make it easy for people. Our goal was purity, safety, make the brand and the education and the knowledge of algae easy for people to understand, and make it portable. So whatever it takes.
Awesome. Catharine, where can our listeners get more of you or learn more about Energy Bits?
Sure. Well, our website is energybits.com, and they can always shoot me an email at hello@energybits.com. I'm traveling for the next week, and I'm slammed right now, so I will apologize if it takes a little long for me to answer questions. I'm way behind on getting answers out to people because we're a little understaffed right now. So, and I'm away all of next week. I'm speaking at the Low Carb Conference in San Diego if anyone's on their way there. So, so that'll be exciting.
Nice.
But, yeah,
I know a few people that'll be there. So
nice.
I think that'll be a fun event.
Yeah.
Are you guys on social media?
Oh, yes. I'm sorry. So my team will hate me for not mentioning that. Yeah. So Twitter handle is Energy Bits. Instagram, our handle is Energy Bits. Same with Facebook, Energy Bits. Okay. And we have Pinterest as well. So we're on all the channels.
Okay. I'll put a link to all of those on the show notes for you guys listening. You mentioned Pinterest, which is kind of just immediately. I'm wondering what's the coolest or most unique use that you've seen on Pinterest with Energy Bits? Most creative, I guess. Well,
we haven't actually been terribly active on Pinterest lately, but what's the coolest thing? Well, we did this It's Okay to Swallow series of videos where people were showing themselves taking their bits. But and the funny thing was we've had a number of customers. I can't believe they must take hours to do this. They would take their bits and create little people and then animate the people like running it's like a time sequence. Yeah. It's hilarious. And we've had mothers send in videos of their children with the little green around their mouth with their hand extended going, "Mommy, more algae." So we have a lot of really fun things that people have done who they love the product. We love them. They make happy faces on their yogurt, and we're just trying to create a community around health and nutrition that's natural and share. So it's fun to see it all grow. We have a long way to go, but
Nice.
It is fun.
Final question, the one that every guest has to answer. We want to know your top 3 tips to live optimal.
Top 3 tips for optimal living. Oh, man. Well, great sleep. Eat as close to nature as possible. And regular fitness, which includes aerobic, stretching, and strength.
All right. That's beautiful. Catherine, thanks for hanging out with us today. This has been a blast. Okay. For you guys listening, remember the code OPP will get you 20% off of your order at energybits.com. We'll have a link to that website in the show notes, along with all of the studies and resources that we've talked about today in that blog post. So go to naturalstacks.com. Make sure you go to iTunes, leave us a 5-star review. Let us know how much you enjoy the OPP. When we read your review on the air, we will hook you up with free Natural Stacks products as a thank you. And finally, share the OPP with the people in your life who you know will benefit from and enjoy the things that we're talking about and doing here. That's how we help more people. That's how we grow this thing and make the change in the world that we all want to see. So thank you guys for being here today. Catherine, thank you.
Thank you very much.